Hello, everyone. Welcome to WP Roundtable. My name is Jason Crawford, coming to you from Medellin, Colombia, and we have a really great guest on tonight, and so I don't want to take any more time. Kyle.
Hey guys, I'm Kyle from WP Roundtable. Happy to be here for episode 60. Holy moly, we've been doing this a long time. Isn't that crazy, Jason? All right, we've got an amazing guest on the show today. I'm really excited to talk with. For the first time, we haven't spoken ever before other than today, and so it's really exciting to finally get to meet and learn a lot about Miss Sara Cannon. Sara, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do?
Sure. Hey everybody, I'm Sara Cannon. I'm based out of Birmingham, Alabama. I've been working in WordPress for quite a while now, and I have a company that I co-founded with Pete Mall called Range, and we do a lot of various WordPress things. We are a VIP partner, and we do design, development, all the above. So that's just me.
Awesome. Thanks, Sara. We are very happy to have you on today, and we've got a lot of questions for you. So before we dive into questions about you, we're going to touch real quick on our quick picks of the week. This is part of the show where we always share something new and interesting that we've discovered or learned over the course of the week that we think everyone should know about. So if you visit the Google Plus event for this broadcast or the show notes after we eventually publish the show on the website, you'll see a link to an article that I found that I read earlier. Originally, it was linked to in a post status article by Brian Krogsgaard. It's to an article written by a guy named Paul Ford called "What is Code?" And it's a super long article that is really informative. I sent it over to my younger brother who's thinking about going into computer science, and I said, seriously, this article is probably better than a whole semester of college. It's just incredibly informative, real-world, kind of examples, and something awesome for anybody thinking about learning more about code or programming should probably read this article. But set aside some time because it's long, but it's really good. So there you go.
Awesome.
Okay, I'll jump in, and with the recent changes to the menus and everything else going on with the updates on WordPress, trying to switch it over to a front-end design side thing, I guess front-end, like, really user engagement type deal. I was kind of looking at this product, I should say, called Toolset, and it's at wp-types.com, and basically it pulls everything up to basically being a front-end design. I don't want to call it a theme, but it's themes and plugins, and it kind of pretty much seems like WordPress is where WordPress is eventually going anyway, so I thought I'd check it out and play around with it a little bit. It looks pretty cool. I haven't gotten to figure it all out, but wp-types.com, and go check it out if you're interested.
Sara, do you have something?
Yeah, I posted just kind of a funny graphic that came up in our Slack today. I think it's a little bit old, but it's just a little humor about project management and what goes on during the development process with a larger team. So
I like it. I read it. It cracked me up. I've dropped a link to it already on the Google Plus event for anyone watching this, and we'll link to it later eventually in the show notes. So thanks for sharing that, Sara.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So let's dive into our questions. We want to learn a lot about Sara, and so do our viewers. So do you mind stepping back a little bit, going to the beginning? Let's talk a little bit about long before your career and WordPress and Range and all the fun things you're doing today. Back when you were a kid, what sort of things that you eventually want to do?
When I was a child, basically, I loved art and I loved science. And I think that it's kind of interesting growing up having this sort of both sides of the brain, that you love creativity, but you love medicine, you love science, you love theory. It's extremely interesting. So when I was growing up, I thought, oh, I either want to be an artist or I want to be like a doctor or a surgeon. And somehow, magically, I ended up in this career where, I mean, the technology and the web and creativity, being creative director of Range, allows me to sort of do both in a way, sort of, not necessarily medicine, but having an analytical side and a coding side of myself. So I think it's kind of awesome where I ended up considering what I wanted to be when I grew up. So
It's cool.
I don't know. I just think it's.
Oh.
I mean, I could have been a doctor, I guess. I'm really good at sewing. You know, brain surgery.
That's pretty awesome that you could say, I'd make a good doctor because I'm good at sewing. I wonder what a doctor would say to that.
With a very steady hand, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
well, that's
doctors.
Together.
I'm sorry for all the doctors I just offended.
Yeah. Well, all the doctors in our audience right now can just, get thicker skin. So cool to tie that together, your youthful aspirations and where you eventually ended up. That's pretty neat. Definitely putting those skills to use. So how did your kind of career develop? Your early career, those jobs that got you on your way, and the winding path that led you to Range today. How'd that work?
Well, it's kind of a little bit of a long story, but not really. I ended up doing graphic design early on, trying to figure out how to make a career out of art, and trying to figure out how, I can't just be a starving artist. I want to be able to help people make things happen, not just sit around in a basement painting all, And so I got into graphic design. That immediately led me into web, and I just sort of latched on to technology very well. So I ended up going to school for graphic design, and I just loved all the web design classes I took. And back then it was like tables and CSS like inline in the tables. and I took a Flash class actually, which was really, really funny. And I learned action scripting, and that sort of sparked my interest. And fast forward years later, I've just been keeping up with the technology and learning something new every day, literally, like I swear. I love that about our industry, is you're always learning. So eventually, I landed an agency job where I was kind of managing the interactive department there and doing a lot of coding and design, and I eventually left and just jumped ship, just went on my own, and that's when I started freelancing in the WordPress community, and then eventually formed Range with my partner, Pete Mall.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that wasn't too long of a story at all.
I tried to shorten it for you guys.
We've got a lot of time, so we do have a lot of questions.
He says we've got a lot of time, but at the end of the hour he'll say, I don't know what happened to the time, and we didn't get through half of our questions.
Yeah. Okay.
So I could talk more about WordPress in my life.
Let's do that.
I mean, if you wanna just keep rambling, I can keep going.
Yeah.
So when it comes to WordPress, I basically when I was working in design work, I love this organization that I went to Haiti with 2 times in my life. They're called Servants for Haiti, and they go down there and they work in an orphanage, and they do a lot of continuing education, scholarship sponsorships for people in Haiti. And I fell in love with this organization in the country of Haiti, and I wanted to help them, and so obviously I'm like, well, I can make them a website. And this is a long time ago. I hadn't even heard of WordPress. I think this was back in like 2005 or something like that, or maybe even earlier. And I came across Joomla, and I was like, wow, this is a CMS that's free. Awesome, let me use it. And it was the worst experience that I've ever had in my life. I mean, maybe Joomla's better now. I don't know. I haven't used it in a long time. But you're shaking your head no. But I was like, there has to be something better out there. There really does. And I was looking around, and I just came across WordPress. And I was like, I'll give this a shot. And ever since then, I've been just like crazy hooked. It's just like I just kept on. It just has been growing with me throughout the years, and I've been growing with it. And I feel like there's this. It's just ingrained into my whole entire life at this point. So it all started with a horrible experience with Joomla trying to find something better for a nonprofit.
So you did a lot of work in the beginning with some nonprofits. Those were a lot of your clients.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always interested to hear kind of like what some of these early clients looked like, and what sort of sites were you building for these early clients, and just how did that process work for you, and what skills were you leveraging and things learning on the fly?
Well, so I had sort of two sides of me. I had the CMS side, which was WordPress, and then I also had the, this is back in the day, the action scripting Flash side, right? So back then I actually would make a lot of Flash sites too. So, I mean, we kind of laugh at it now, but it was the thing back then. Everybody was doing it. It was so popular, and I was always trying to figure out ways how to like hook in text documents for people to update themselves, to update the Flash site, so I wouldn't have to go in and do it, and which is kind of crazy if you think about our history of Flash and how we all used to make Flash websites. But now it's with the clients I used to have, a lot of them were nonprofits and very simple. And I actually, in sort of the beginnings of WordPress, would take the default themes and just hack them completely to where they would look nothing like what they look at all. And that was sort of my beginnings. I'm sure a lot of people have done that too. Like, you take like Kubrick or like 2010 and like just completely make it look like something completely different than it was. So those were sort of the beginnings of my involvement with WordPress, and I quickly became kind of crazy about WordPress and started getting on IRC, started paying attention to core and following the core releases and trying to contribute. And I feel like as a designer going into code, as like I just fell hard for it. I just love it. And back then, I feel like there was a lot of people around me that really supported me a lot. Like a lot of people on IRC were like so friendly, and I feel like that's such a great thing about the WordPress community is like you're like, well, I don't really know how to set this up locally. People are just willing to help you, and that's so great about WordPress, I think, and what's so incredible about our community.
I think that's pretty much true everywhere except here, where Kyle is very abusive of me. He tells me that's not how you spell CSS, and he picks on me really bad.
Yeah.
You guys have a bad abusive relationship, not supportive of each other at all.
Yeah.
Did you see the notes where he's picking on my papyrus?
Hey, it's not picking on. That's a service to the community.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It was intervention time for Jason. Okay, so I'm getting some listener questions too, but I want to another question that I always like to ask too is do you have any nightmare projects that you would like to kind of reminisce about and describe to us?
So I was working at this PR firm kind of out of college, and I did a lot of WordPress work with them, and we were doing a website redesign for this steel company, and they were like, okay, your design looks good, okay, and I was like, oh, good, and they're like, well, so we want our logo to spin. I was like, what do you mean to spin? They're like to spin around, like in 3D. I was like, oh, and they're like, and make it bigger. I was like, okay. And I was just trying to listen to what they're saying, and they're like, make it bigger, make it spin. And I was like, what? Well, why do you want it to spin? And they're like, well, because we want it to be on fire. And I'm like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, we want our logo to be bigger, to spin, and be on fire. And I was just like, oh my god. It was really, really hilarious because I was a pretty young designer at the time, and I was sort of like, well, I don't think we should do that, but I had a creative director above me, and he's like, oh no, we're doing it. They want it, we're doing it. I was like, oh god. So I actually did make this logo spin and catch on fire, and up in the top corner of the website.
Please tell me that site's still there.
It isn't. I actually was looking for it not too long ago because I was sort of like thinking, I wonder if this website's still there, but it's not. The company, the metal company, ended up getting bought out by a bigger metal company, and but it's just like, I kind of wish I had like even just a snapshot, like a screenshot of what that used to look like, because it was horrible. It was like seriously the worst thing you've ever seen.
That's a strong thing to say, talking to people like us who all come from humble beginnings of making websites for friends and family and father-in-laws and
I think like, the worst thing is that I did it. Like, I made this horrible atrocity happen. You know, I'm ashamed of myself. It's really
the kind of thing you want to put those hidden messages on the site to say, you know, I apologize to you, the end user, for...
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It's so horrible.
Somebody just asked, did you make this flaming logo? This is really what our listeners do want to know. Did you make it with HTML5 or with Flash?
Yeah, it was in Flash. I don't think HTML5 existed back then.
Okay.
Oh, it's really funny.
Yeah. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Another
kind of crazy one that I had not too long ago, it wasn't very early on, was I had a Tumblr project that I had to do.
Wow.
I work for a company that has some Tumblrs, and they were like, okay, so we have this teenage audience, we're going to do a Tumblr, we're going to get you to design it. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can design and develop this Tumblr. And I developed it, and I just didn't know what I was getting into. It was crazy.
Wow.
Have you guys done Tumblr?
I've never tried to design Tumblr. I mean, we've gotten people off of Tumblr before.
It's like one whole file is everything.
Oh.
And you don't have a dev environment, so it's crazy. All right.
Okay.
I'd like to know how that worked out one day. Like, you need to do an actual video explaining how you did that.
So people do Tumblr stuff all the time, and I just really don't know how they even do it. It's just I don't know. When I think about horror stories, client horror stories, I think about the flaming logo, and I think about the time I had to do 2 Tumblr blogs. It was like the worst times of my life.
Wow.
Anyway.
It's different. It's different that those choices. I mean, a lot of people will say something like, "Oh, I just really underbid a project," or something like that, and it was nice. Or the client was just too nitpicky, or things like that. And you're like, "I committed this like horrible design atrocity. I apologize. I committed sins on the internet.
I did.
I need to atone for the rest of my life." But that's pretty cool. So moving on, today you are atoning for those sins quite a bit because you're a huge proponent for good user experience, good design. You do a lot of awesome talks about typography and trends in design, and I always think of you as someone who's a somewhat of an authority, or just someone speaking out a lot about good movements in design, especially in the context of WordPress. So we wanted to talk a little bit about some things like that. So particularly about user experience. What is it that interests you about that whole discipline so much?
Oh man, we're getting into one of my favorite topics.
Yay.
User experience really is, I mean, you guys know, if you have a horrible experience, it ruins everything. So it kind of is everything, if that makes sense. So I think user experience is just overlooked completely by, I feel like in the WordPress world a lot of times you think about user experience. WordPress itself has a decent user experience, but then we don't really talk that much actually about our front-end user experience and also our admin user experience as well. It's extremely important. You got 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm super into it because I really love figuring out what's really great for the client, but I'm also extremely passionate about, for publishing, what is a good user experience for your actual client or whoever you're making the website for, their best user experience in publishing. And it's interesting, especially if you get new users of WordPress and asking them questions like, and they might be like, oh, well, this is confusing, and it might just shock you, like, well, how do you not know that? And it's really awesome to think about user experience in all sorts of different ways, and especially in dealing with your projects. And I think that every project you should sort of really contemplate it and think about what the best possible way you could help your client. I mean, it might be easier to sort of like, oh yeah, well, we're going to make this slider that's really horrible on the front end, and it's also horrible for you on the back end because you're going to have to put HTML on it. And you know, sometimes that happens, right? And so it's horrible for both user experiences. Like the person on the front end doesn't even see the last slide, and the person on the back end is like trying to figure out how to even make a thing work, and it's horrible for everybody. And so just in thinking about making websites, making it really easy, so if someone wants to publish like a big header hero image, they can just easily do it. Very simple in the back end. Don't have to worry too much about placement. It's awesome.
So do me a favor and hit your biggest design pet peeve.
I would say, well, in general, bad typography is always horrible for everybody. If you can't read something very well, it's terrible. And it's funny how a lot of, like, I think it was Safari made their reader where you can sort of hit it and you can get like the website in this nice reader view, or like Pocket, or any sort of reader where you can basically change the website into something readable. And it's like, well, your website should be readable in the first place. You shouldn't have to sort of make it readable somewhere else. So typography and readability is definitely, I mean, content is king. So if the content on your website needs to be readable, I mean, if your type is illegible or even just difficult, it's really horrible. And also the lack of white space is also a huge thing for me. Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of reminded me, are you familiar with Michelle Schulp?
Mm-hmm.
Michelle Schulp?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, she had a really great section with us where she talked about the user experience in public bathrooms. So I'm just curious, do you have any like real life examples of like user experience that it really drives you nuts?
In public bathrooms in particular, or just
hers was public bathrooms. That cracked me up. I died laughing for like half an hour of the show. But like, I know we didn't put this in the document, so if you don't have an answer, I'm sorry. But like real world experiences of bad user design. Actually, I think I have
one. So I was in Europe a few weeks ago, and I got this ticket, my boarding pass, and the time to board was not. It was like it says 5:00, but then the time that we were taking off was in we call it military time, like 24-hour time. So I was just so confused. I was like, why are there two different time like systems on the same document? It was insane to me. I was just like, I don't understand. Is this 5 in the morning? Because the other one is like, it says like 22. I was just so. It was like the worst user. I actually had to go up to somebody and be like, I was in Brussels, and I was like, what time is this? Because there were two different times. It was just like, why would you put two different time systems on the same document? Awful. Awesome. That was just one small example of a horrible user experience I had recently.
Nice. And I think I threw you in there. I didn't read your answer. with some comments for like the Apple changes, recent Apple changes that have gone on, because Kyle and I have been discussing these ad nauseum.
Okay, so there are a lot of different things with Apple. So with Apple, I feel like a lot of it's about profit, of course. So if you change up designs and cords and cables and plugs, sure, maybe you're improving the plug and you're improving the system, but you're also getting people to buy more stuff. So I feel like it's change up the designs, everybody gets frustrated, and then Apple profits, and you have to have the newest thing. So it's kind of interesting, but at the same time, I feel like they are making strides to be lighter, and that's really awesome.
Nice. Okay, I think we're going to move on to typography. And what do we have for you? Your little elevator speech, your rant on typography. Did you already cover that, or do you want to hit that again?
Oh, I can talk about typography, sure. So I think I spoke about typography and user experience at WordCamp San Francisco this past year. And basically, typography is 95% of web design. And people will get offended when I say that, but I don't mean like web development. I mean web design, like the design, the layout. It's 95% typography, really, if you actually think about it, if you just think about an image as like a block. And it's really all about our content. And so this is what makes typography so important, is it is the majority of the design and also the majority of the user experience. If you think about illegibility, or if you think about if things are too small or too big, or like you don't really know if this means to click here, like it's the user experience of a web page really has a lot to do with the typography, and bad typography can completely ruin an experience, or it can completely make it. If you just like go to a website that has really, really nice typography, you change it to like a horrible font that's too small, like it really just, it ruins it. So it is super important, I think, and it's super important for user experience and all of that. So I feel like in talking about it, making sure that you have like really good space and really good hierarchy is really important to the success or failure of a website.
So we asked you to criticize our typography on our website. We think that we have a website somewhere at wproundtable.com, but I don't go to it very often, so it's like way behind. Everything we do is on Google pretty much.
I don't think it's bad. I mean, you have Palantina going on, and that's not terrible. I mean, you could use, I mean, don't use Papyrus. You could use Freight Text Pro. You could, you know, kind of modernize it slightly in terms of a serif type, but not terrible. I'm not critical.
and the other panelists protested adamantly and made me and forced me back to that bullying thing where they like got very rude and told me they were going to beat me up if I used Papyrus. So, so
that would be a crime against humanity. Yeah.
That's my favorite font.
It has its place. Its place is in Egypt. If you're like, you know, translating hieroglyphics, maybe.
I like hieroglyphics, especially like I'm really digging. Oh, you know what? That was one of your talks I was listening to, where we're going into this more visual world, and you talk about icons and using icons instead of words. The noun something or other.
The Noun Project.
Yeah, the Noun Project. I love it. I don't even want to use words, just pictures. Hieroglyphics are perfectly fine for me.
Yeah, that might get a little confusing. There actually is a huge debate about whether or not icons are globally recognizable as certain things. So, like, some people say, oh, yeah, you know, the hamburger, like the 3 lines for, like, opening a menu on mobile. I think it's very interesting because we've only made that up in the past, like, 5 years, right? Something like that, like something very recent that's starting to, like, take hold as, like, a human-computer experience. globally.
Right.
And there are a lot of people that don't even know what that does. They have no idea to even touch it. And I feel like, as time goes on, we are making up stuff. Like, we live in this time where we are literally making up icons that represent certain things that you do. And it's a little bit dangerous to rely on icons the whole time. You might not know. Like, what does the eyeball do? Is that previewing? The little
I think
eyeball
it's ice
icon?
cream. That's like the automatic order ice cream button.
Yeah.
I'm ordering ice cream, yeah.
It's a good question. Yeah, should we hold on to all the antiquated icons, like the save icon, which is the floppy disk, and things like that?
I've read things where people say that instead of a hamburger menu, if you just say the word menu with like a button around it, people are more likely to click it, like tap it, than if you have a hamburger icon, because people aren't quite used to the hamburger yet. So it's kind of a debate now. Now people are combining the hamburger with the word menu, and it's kind of a crazy time.
It is. It is. And I've read similar things. So you're absolutely right that these things are kind of like up for debate. Like, what's really the best way to handle this? And with super limited real estate, and always a strive towards this maybe app-like experience. I keep getting that from clients. I just want it to be more app-like. Yeah. We're figuring this out, what that means. But,
well, while we're on this, Kyle, maybe you can tell us, have you done any user experience testing on your Luke and Vader light switch?
This thing? Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody ever have any trouble figuring out which is on and off?
So far, everyone to come into this office, I would say, has tested positively. I think it's good. I mean, if I would be concerned about it being a distracting user experience, it might disrupt some people's workflow, because instead of just moving on with the task, they get distracted and comment on it and say, hey, that's a cool light switch.
Unlike the red cat on your dry erase board, which is perfect user experience.
I'm productive, okay?
Well, what if somebody really loves the dark side, but they don't feel like they could be on Luke? They have to be on Vader, but they need light to see.
It could be very confusing. So maybe my tests are not complete.
Okay, sorry to waste time and throw us off target there, Sarah.
We're just having fun.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, did we have any more?
I want to talk about range.
Okay.
Let's talk about range. So take us back to the inception of this great company, to those moments where you and Mr. Pete Mall, who I would also like to have on as a guest at some point in the future. I'd love to talk to him as well. So back when you and Pete were brainstorming and saying, we want a real agency here, and we want it to be like this, and we want to do these things, and this is what we want it to be like, and what was going on at the time, and what were those discussions like, and your ultimate plans for range?
All right, fireside chat. So I ended up jumping ship from the agency I was at for 4.5 years and going freelance. And part of it stemmed from this job that I got. I was offered to do Sarah Lacey's new launch of Pando Daily. And I'm sure you guys have maybe heard of Pando Daily.
What?
It's a tech blog called Pando Daily. She used to work at TechCrunch, and then she started her own media blog that covers Silicon Valley tech for journalism. Anyway, so she launched Pando Daily, and she was launching it, and she was like, I was recommended to be the person to design and develop Pando Daily, and she's like, okay, so can we launch in a month? And I was like, wait, what? Design and launch your tech enterprise in a month? And she's like, yeah, definitely. So I was like, I need help. And so I contacted Pete, and Pete's like, oh yeah, we got it. We'll launch this thing in a month. It's no problem. And that was sort of like the first time I worked with Pete, and we just worked really hard, and we just got this thing off the ground for her, and it was awesome. And I was like, Pete is so great to work with. He's so smart, and it's sort of like this compliment to me because I code, but I don't heavy code. I don't completely dive down into the back end of everything and understand all that's going on. I love CSS, I love SAS, I love, sort of the design aspect and the front end aspect. And so I was like, me and Pete make a really great match because he's like, oh, I don't really like the front end at all. So we started working together. And it got to the point where we were basically paying each other all the time. Like, he was hiring me for things, I was hiring him for things, he was hiring me for things, and it was so great. And then so he's like, well, let's just start a company because, I mean, this is awesome. We're doing great stuff with WordPress. We know each other in the community, and we should just do this. And I was like, I don't know. I was kind of reluctant because I was a little bit, I just had jumped ship from the agency, and I was kind of like, well, is this where my life is going? I have no idea. But it really just made sense eventually. And Aaron Campbell, I have to mention him here. He joined us for the first year and a half at Range. And so it was me and Pete and Aaron who founded it, and that worked out really awesome. We were just like a great trifecta. And I feel like a lot of people end up founding these smaller agencies, and they just have this idea to just like blow up and become like, we are a WordPress provider, we're going to do all the things and all the websites and all the plugins and all, just everything. And we really had this vision of we don't want to do everything. We don't want to service every company. We want to be smaller and more agile and be able to take on key strategic partners where we help them accomplish their goals, and as well as do really cool things that we want to do as well in terms of technology. And so we're sort of trying to remain pretty lean instead of just taking on everything that's thrown at us. And so I had always had this problem of saying no, and which makes Pete like such a great partner is he is so about saying no. And so we'll get these people contacting us and be like, help us, we don't have that much money. And I'm like, well, we might help them. Pete's like, no, we can't help them. So it's so awesome because I'm sort of like, I am more of an emotional empathizer, and I'm like, oh, well, they really need help. And Pete's like, well, no, we're not the person for them to help them, Sarah. And I was like, you're right. And we always try to send people to other places to where maybe they can find help. But it's been kind of great having growing Range the past few years. We have some amazing people on staff now, and it's just a joy to work with everybody. Getting on Slack every day is it's like happy and wonderful, and I just like couldn't have asked for, like, I had no idea this was going to be my future like 6 years ago, and now it's just a wonderful organization with wonderful people in it, and I just can't even, sometimes I like can't even believe it's that real, like working with these awesome people and working on WordPress, and I couldn't have asked for a better career. This industry is so amazing.
That's a pretty good answer. So here you are today, a few years later, running Range, and you touched on this a little bit. I was wondering maybe if you could talk just a little bit more about like
what we do.
Sure. Maybe expound on that a little bit. Talk about the clients you serve, the perfect client for Range, and what kind of projects Range is really well suited for that Pete would actually say yes to.
So we've been a VIP partner since they first opened up that program, which has been awesome. We've gotten VIP clients coming our way which is really great. But we also we don't just do VIP clients. Some of the latest projects that we've done that have been we've been really proud of. One of them was we have a client on retainer, which is Disney Publishing worldwide, and they are awesome. We redid the whole Disney Publishing worldwide website, which basically it's the division of Disney that does all the books. They have all their books, and they don't sell the books on their website, but they link out to like Amazon and all the other retailers. And they've been a great client, kind of a dream client. I never thought we would ever work with a client that large at first. And now it's like, wow, they need WordPress. They need people that know about WordPress. And it's been just a great client to work with. And one of the most recent projects, well, this one's not that recent. One of the projects that I'm most proud of is redoing the Flickr blog design. So Flickr has a blog. It's at blog.flickr.net. And it's a blog where it was just horrible, just like basic, tiny images, just crazy horrible. And I'm sorry if they're listening. I would feel horrible saying that their website was horrible. But I'm sorry. No, but it didn't showcase images, which is what they're all about. And so we were able to redesign their whole entire blog where the images are huge. It's just like image focus, image heavy, and they're just bright and beautiful. And one of our fortes is also technology, so we're able to make sure that their site is fast, which is an extremely importance when you deal with like huge images. So making sure that they have fast site on mobile as well as desktop. So that's kind of, and really an ideal client also. We do branding. I personally love the branding aspect of things, and my partner Pete personally loves technology, and so his probably ideal client would be something that's complicated technically, and he can like really work out doing testing and working out all the intricate details technically of what they're trying to accomplish. And I really love working on strategic design and how you can further someone's goals and their brand strategically through design and through how their website is, and defining goals and making sure that we meet them through design as well. And so I think when you marry the two, the technical heavy side and design side, the results are pretty great. So really our ideal client would be someone that really wants awesome design that's very strategic as well as really great technology.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. That does sound like a really good setup, I would say. Mm-hmm. So I've got some listener questions here. Mm-hmm. I don't want to shoot your way. So Topher wants to know, pretty straightforward, looks like you're in a pretty comfortable setting. Is this your normal workspace?
This is my reading chair.
Ah.
It's in my bedroom, and I work out of my bedroom actually. So I have a separate room in my house that's my office, but I never work out of there. I've kind of made it sort of my painting studio because that's kind of what I like to do in my free time is paint, and so it's just full of paints and stuff. And so
wow.
This is my comfortable setting. I could just like light a candle and drink some wine. Yeah.
That sounds great. Okay, so Peter wants to know what are some range kind of go-to tools and plugins? He wants to basically know the range secrets.
Our setup? Okay.
Yes.
I'll tell you all our secrets. They're not really secrets. I'll just tell anybody that asks. We use Git for everything, and we use Beanstalk to sort of manage a lot of our Git repositories. And we use Vagrant for our local installs, and which it's kind of awesome, honestly. And then we definitely use Sass for all that we do, and we use Grunt to compile our Sass. I don't know if this is making sense to the person asking.
I'm totally with you, and so is people.
I'm rambling. I do sort of like a dual purpose in terms of design work. I use Sketch a lot to sketch out my designs.
Awesome.
Sometimes I use it I just go in browser. I think it really depends on the client and the type of thing that we're doing. So a lot of times if I do wireframes, I use Sketch to do the wireframes. And then I will present them using an application called Envision, which is online. It's a program that you have to, I think you pay for it monthly or something. And it's really great because you present with it, and anybody can comment on it. They can like pinpoint a certain aspect of design and comment on it. So I will go in and make functionality notes on all the wireframes. I'll go in and make functionality notes on all the designs. And so the client can look at it and tap on the comment and see what it says about the functionality. But sometimes we design stuff in browser. It really just depends on what we're doing. So we use that process a lot. I'm not sure what else to say.
Those are all the secrets?
Well, we use Slack for internal communication,
All right.
which is awesome and a lot of fun. And a lot of times for project management, we rely on Basecamp. So it's kind of interesting where we have a lot of stuff up in the air, but Slack sort of hubs it all. So we have everything porting into Slack. So if someone comments on a Basecamp message, it gets ported into that Slack channel. If someone emails a certain email address, it gets ported into a certain Slack channel. So Slack sort of ties all these different things together. If something gets deployed from Beanstalk, it gets ported into that Slack channel with the commit message and the commit number, and you can click on it and see it, which is pretty cool.
I'm really enjoying Slack, except for I kind of had to remove myself from the Slack channel because Kyle had the Slack bot set up to do all sorts of weird stuff and to criticize me every time I typed a message. So he imported Twitter, and I'm scared of Twitter. It confuses me. So I jump in there once in a while and check stuff, but otherwise I had to hide myself from it.
Slackbot is kind of fun if you make them do certain things. It's kind of silly. But sometimes you're like, shut up, Slackbot. You're annoying me.
All the time. Training Slackbot is one of the moments where I'm not feeling productive and I want to waste some time. I'm going to go train Slackbot to do some more tricks.
My coworker, Kyle, his Twitter handle is Scuba Kyle. Everything is Scuba Kyle. I was like, Kyle, do you scuba dive? He's like, no. I was like, well, why is it Scuba Kyle? And he's like, well, I used to scuba dive, and I made this handle like when I was in high school, and now I want a new one, but I don't know what to do. And so we have Slackbot trained to like shout things at him whenever the word Scuba Kyle is mentioned. So if he says Scuba Kyle, it will be like, oh, do you mean your new name, K Jordy, or like trying to change up his Twitter handle? And it's just really funny. Like everything's funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I know Kyle's been trying to figure out how he's going to monetize his new Slackbot training products.
It's a new service I'm selling. So.
Did you see the one where you can draw straws? You could say you could say like straws or like period straws or something, and it'll like generate a certain length of equal signs per person that does it, and whoever has the longest straw has to do something. It's really hilarious.
Oh wow!
I'll have to link that in the channel afterwards.
Oh,
that's
scary.
So I got a couple more questions about range. My one big one is the domain. How'd you guys decide on that, and why not a range.com or something like that?
Well, range.com is taken. That would be awesome. So ran.ge, GE is actually Georgia, the country of Georgia. And so we had to hire a domain agent in Georgia to acquire that domain for us. And so It comes at a little bit of a cost, but we renew it every year, and it's pretty awesome to have that short domain.
I liked it. That's why I was wondering, because yeah, it seemed a little out there, and I liked it.
Thanks.
A couple more. What can you tell us? So the last videos I remember seeing, at least, you were talking about how you guys were only 3 employees. How have you? But now you're talking about you've got a whole team. How have you guys grown? How many? If you want to tell us how many employees you're at now, how do you manage those tasks and everything?
We are completely full-time 5. That's, payroll 5. I mean, we have other auxiliary people that we have to work on projects with us. But in terms of completely full-time, we have 5 of us, which is a tiny team, but it's actually pretty awesome. And we have a project manager and 3 developers and me, who does most of the design. And one of our developers does a lot of kind of design work, and which is pretty cool, but it's pretty great. When we got our project manager last year, it was just like revolutionary for us. We were like, wow, everything's running so smoothly and amazing. It's like shocking. Because developers, they just want to develop and really work on the problems, not deal with the day-to-day like blah blah communication so much in terms of like scheduling meetings and everything. And so
Right.
it was pretty awesome for our team to get our project manager on staff.
Can you tell us real quick how you managed to incorporate a project manager when you're used to being like in charge of the project, or just how has that changed things, and how does that work for you?
So basically, before we were kind of tag teaming project management, where like I would take on like 3 clients, Pete would take on 2 clients, like Kyle would take on 1 client, and in terms of managing the project. And we would sort of check in with each other, but we sort of were all individually doing design work or programming work for everybody, but then we would also manage a certain few amount of projects. But that like stretches you pretty thin pretty quickly in terms of taking up your time during the day. And so when we got our project manager, we just sort of slowly brought her into chat and brought her into communication, and eventually just let her just take over everything. And it's been super great. It's been really awesome, and our clients actually are super happy, because some clients get very particular. They're like, oh, well, there's someone new. Oh, wow, what's happening? But they actually notice the improvement in communication, like response times are quicker, because this person isn't trying to code a plugin right now, so it's been an extreme improvement that has helped us out a lot.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Got another listener question. Peter wants to know, this is a little more back-end, but what do you do for handling custom metadata in WordPress? Do you use your own custom bespoke solution? Or do you use ACF, CMD2, whatever fits the job? What's your process for that?
I wouldn't be the best person to ask for range, but I really, really think that we use our own thing. Like, I think that Pete and Kyle and Devin have developed their own sort of meta solution off of different plugins that they've, over the years, and then have sort of developed their own. When we start from the ground up with our themes, we sort of have developed our own base theme based off of underscores, sort of the simple type of structure, but we've sort of like created this new one. So we have it on GitHub, but it's not up to date. We call it Foothills. It's just free on GitHub, and I think Devin would probably kill me if he knew that I even mentioned it, because it's not where it should be right now. We have a better version of it that we need to push to GitHub. But basically, we use our own base theme when we start off a new project, and we don't really rely on that many plugins unless we have to. And so I'm pretty sure that they handle meta. I don't know how they handle meta, honestly, but I think they do it themselves. They don't really have like a plugin or something that they use.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of speaking, a lot of public speaking, or a good deal, I would say. I think yeah, a lot. You said you told us yourself you travel a lot. You put together a lot of presentations. You've spoken at some at least some great WordCamps and other related conferences. And I looked it up, and you have like the 10th most videos on WordPress TV, which is pretty cool. There's hundreds and hundreds of people on there, and some of the most popular presentations too. I happen to know. So how does this like play into your what you want to do and what you try to accomplish? Speaking, is this important to your business? Is it important to you personally? Just something you enjoy doing? You put a lot of time and effort into it.
It's kind of funny. So I really love getting back to the community. I love learning from other people, and so I figured I should, like, I almost owe it to everybody else to sort of share what I've learned, which is pretty awesome. And so I actually honestly don't, like, I used to be completely terrified of public speaking. It was like this thing where I would just get up and freeze, and I would just like stammer through everything and not really know what to say and get really nervous and shaky. And that was, you know, back in, I think, 2009. And I just started challenging myself to try to completely share everything I knew and keep on going, keep on pushing, try to get better. And I've noticed that when I do speak, people, like, it's very satisfactory. I put all this time into it. I get nervous about it. It's very stressful for me, but then at the same time, afterwards, people coming up to me and be like, I enjoyed your talk. Your talk was great. I learned so much. It's a very gratifying feeling to be able to share with others what you've learned.
Awesome. Also, you recently gave a presentation for kids at an event. How'd that go? And how'd that come about?
That was interesting. They just asked me to do it randomly, and they're like, "Oh, you're already giving 2 talks. Can you, even though you're giving 2 talks already, can you give a third one to the children?" I was like, "Oh, to the children?" And they're like, "Yeah, there's a kid camp, WordCamp, Atlanta." And I was like, "Oh, I mean, you can't really say no to the children. I mean, who's gonna say no to the children? I can't say no to the children. It's like you have to say yes to the children." So I said yes to a third talk, and it was actually very interesting because these kids are smart. They are so intelligent. Like, we are like the last generation growing up without internet when we were young. They've all had internet since they were born, and they are intelligent, and they know what they're doing. It was humbling. It was humbling teaching them because they were really intelligent. So
I can only imagine what that would be like. So many WordCamp presentations and have people many years older than me being introduced to these topics for the first time and asking questions, and it's very used to that. But if it were someone under the age of 10, it seems like the dynamic changes so much.
Yeah, there was a Boy Scout under the age of 10 that was like, I need help picking out some extra stuff for my Boy Scout website. And I was like, "Oh, are you on WordPress?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I already got all that running. I already have a theme, everything. I just want suggestions on some plugins." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're 7. You're 7 years old. This is incredible." I feel like, he is at the level that I was when I was 22.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's gonna be amazing to see what happens over the next decade.
There are probably plenty of people getting paid to do this stuff who know about as much. That aside, our time has really flown by here. Just like Jason said, I'm going to say this at the end, but I don't know where it went. We had a lot of questions to ask, and we were only able to skip through and ask the big ones. We've got just a couple other quick ones just as we wrap up. First off. What events might somebody bump into you at over the course of the next year? What do you plan on attending?
I'm definitely going to go to WordCamp New York. I love that camp. It's awesome. And WordCamp US, if that happens, where that's happening, if that's happening somewhere, I don't know. Does anybody know? Do you guys know?
They just opened the survey the other day for people to apply to host their city, host it in their city. But it's
well,
very early stages.
If it doesn't happen in 2015, maybe it'll happen in 2016. Yes.
We can hope.
Starting to come up on the fall.
I know. Okay.
Well,
so that's it.
I think, I mean, if San Francisco has one, maybe I'll go out there for that. So.
Okay.
If anybody asks me to speak at their camp, maybe I'll end up just going there. So.
Well, we will talk about that very shortly.
Okay.
Okay. Who would you recommend as someone that we should ask to be a future guest on the show?
I would say Konstantin Oberland. Obviously, he's the release lead for this round of WordPress Core. But even before that, great guy to talk to, very knowledgeable.
Yep. Awesome. Good suggestion. So, anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't, or things we failed to ask, or even just anything that you want to share with viewers worth checking out?
I don't think we... Let's see. You asked me all these questions about Kanye West, and you never asked those, so... You said, how has Kanye West affected your business?
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Why are you so disappointing? You didn't ask that question.
You're not supposed to say that one on air.
We never asked.
That's 60. That's like 58 episodes. Nobody's ever brought that up on air, and she ruined it. It's like jinx now.
I'm so sorry. I thought those two were hilarious. And I thought, surely they're going to ask these on air because it's just so funny.
All right.
I'm pretty sure you're the first one to bring that one up on air, and that one's been as every guest we've had.
Do people take it too seriously?
Most don't, but some do.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I ruined everything.
I don't know.
That's all right. Nobody that comes on the show has actually ever heard of us before, so I don't think they'll know in advance.
Our viewers don't know the joke, though. It's not a very funny joke, I guess. It's funny to us. We'll tell you after we're off air so that we can make it.
Oh, so the viewers won't know it?
Some joke.
Okay. It'll be secrets. WordPress secrets.
Secrets that only guests on this show get to know.
Okay.
Totally worth it.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, Sarah, it's been a great hour learning more about you. I'm very, very grateful you took the time to join us today. I really hope that we bump into each other at an event in the near future. And just thanks a lot.
Thank you,
thanks
guys.
for joining us. That was great.
This is fun. Sorry I ruined your secret question.
No. It's still secret. There's still secrets people don't know.
Okay.
All right, have a good one, Sarah.
All right. Bye, y'all.